And action. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm sure you know by now. If you don't, and this is your first video, I will introduce myself. I am the Ranting Rose, and this is a space, a place for a conversation. Now, I'm sure you can kind of tell already, I'm trying a new thing by happenstance. The last few videos that I've posted, really all of the videos that I've posted so far, have been from my laptop. And by happenstance, in my last attempt to post, I realized that the photo booth app on my MacBook may not be the best to record these videos. I'm finding out very quickly, just from a quality standpoint, I think the opportunity to shoot in 4K is pretty cool. And I'm also matching that with the ability to use my DJI mini mic to hopefully get a better sound quality as well. I think you all know by now my intent is to be very sincere with these videos. And so who knows how it's really going to work out at the end of the day. But I thought, hey, worth it to give it a try and see what happens. Oftentimes, that's the best way that we can see what will happen. So let's give it a go. As usual, I'm thinking about something today and just want to talk a little bit about it. Today, I'm thinking about the power of asking questions, the power of asking questions, and how that may differ, in fact, than the ability to make a statement. And also in pondering the difference between the both of those, how able we are to do one, whereas we may be very unable, at least from concreteness and absolution, to do another. For instance, we can make a claim, we can make a statement, but how often I find, at least personally, that those claims that I'm making, those statements that I'm making, um, I don't believe in my intelligence enough to claim anything that I'm saying to be absolute truth. So what's the point in claiming things anyways? And furthermore, I don't even know if I have the capability, even if I was prepared with all of the information that's possible, which isn't possible for my limited self, that I could even be so confident, be so audacious, let's say, to make a claim to begin with. For instance, many claims, no matter how intelligent they are, can always be kind of competed against, debated against, reclaimed later, adapted to new circumstances, new environments. I mean, isn't this the case for history? And maybe much more powerful it can be, that against claims or against even the connotations, the context of claims, to pose a question against them, just for the sheer curiosity of seeking to come closer to the potentiality of a claim, which I believe personally you can only find in one direction, but either way is really outside us in the frame of reference of being a simple human being. And so I think it could be a much better utilization, excuse me, a utilization of our energies to really constantly ask questions. It's doing this again. I notice it's doing this again. And it's different. It's different than on my MacBook. Maybe I'm jiggling the camera, but the camera seems to be adjusting itself. Anyways, I'm not going to get off track here. Continually asking ourselves questions about the thoughts we have, the claims we have about things, and see if at the end of the day they actually match up. You know, if they're actually really as solid as we think they are. And if they are, I guess that's great, as long as it's painting the best picture for us all. But if they're not, what can we do with them? What can we put around them to make them more solid. I mean, I think the attempt at life, hopefully, is to construct over time, right? To get better with time and construct things that are more absolute, more concrete, not only for a small audience, but something that can be applied to a wide audience, the widest audience possible that makes sense to all those individual parties which make up that audience in a way that we can truly rely on something, right? Because if not that, then we find ourselves, I think, entertaining claims that are so easy to entertain, especially if they're shared collectively at a large scale, because they make it, they're just easily relied upon, they're consistent, they become notions which we believe to be true. But if you have the time and you really quest through them, you're really curious, you really ask a lot of questions, sometimes I find they get broken. And sometimes these really, really solid things, or at least things that we perceive to be really solid things, for me personally, just in like a little curiosity, tend to get broken or at least damaged quite easily. And especially when I take those claims, right? Claims and put them in notions towards another grouping. For instance, we might have a claim of, what's the best for us to do? And, the answer to the claim is yada, yada, yada. But when we think about the best thing for us to do and how it may be not the best thing for others to happen to them, I mean, is that really the best thing for us to do? And again, you don't have to go into detail of what I may mean by that for your imagination to really spiral about 1.5 million things that we say and do, which we think are, I think, in our hearts or in our minds, or a combination of both or a lack of either, that we feel like are answers to that question. But again, if you look at them full circle, you have to ask yourselves, are they the best things for us to do? Is this actually the way things are? Is this the most concrete way to look at things? So I personally find, and it's really, 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 how many times do I have to say really for you to get it? It's really been quite a breakthrough in my life, especially personally being a person who always aimed to have so many claims and so many opinions and such an energy around sharing them and having them be received and understood and even sometimes agreed upon, from my own like arrogance and ignorance, and I'll say it as well, youth, that I never, although questions were involved previously to making my own claims, opinions, yada, 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 et cetera, I didn't really put the main priority into just constantly asking questions, and also like the comfort and kind of peace to realize that it might be like just a never ending quest through questions, and that you can pose questions on claims and questions on questions, right? To continue to build, I think, really, really beautiful things at the end of the day. Things I think that we all truly want. I believe, and we all have a right and ability and hopefully a freedom to believe, but I believe in a category of beings, we call them humans, human beings that really essentially, like taking out a lot of the extra fabric, kind of want the same things at the end of the day. I would hope we want, clean water and food to nourish our bodies, that the task of getting that won't be overwhelmingly arduous, I would say. And we think about that in like a work-related issue, but it can even be monetarily, right? We don't want it to be so cost preventative to have access to clean water and clean food, that it might cost a large portion of our lives, or maybe for some of us even trading that life against a wage not even be possible, right? I think we increasingly live in a world where some of us are faced with that challenge of, is it even possible for me to have access? And that's just from the wage standpoint. Some of us very physically, right, may not even have access to the means to be able to produce that sort of food or to harvest that sort of water in our nearby vicinity and environment. But I don't think that stops the want, any of those things, for our true desire as human beings to like need and desire those things, you know? So that's interesting. And fundamentally, I think, oh, we would appreciate shelter, right? And I think that within our means, as they change, we get a little more grandiose as our resources increase with what we would imagine for the shelter to look like and feel like and show our friends to be, and all these sort of concepts. But like at base roots, right? I think that all human beings appreciate the fact, yearn for the fact that they could and desire and want to and need to some extent, have shelter, right? And yeah, again, so I think that's true. And so we should really pose questions, I think, amidst that. There is more, right, that we share. I think we share the need and desire for love, really, to be sharing our lives with others in a positive way, and that we are able to express ourselves positively, and that we can be received positively, and we can cultivate, feelings and emotions of real positivity, which, I would express as love. A lot of words have been kind of played with along the way, but I think in essence, love really is that. It's a moment of, without reward, without manipulation, without like competition, just this intrinsic ability to share with one another in a loving state is, I think, I mean, why would you not? How could you not? I think all human beings, I think, that's kind of the drive that makes us, whether we like to admit it or not, social beings. We desire to be in communion with one another. We desire to love and to be loved, and we have a lot of things, I understand as well, that get in the way with that may penetrate our thoughts into not thinking that that's what we want, and maybe even to sometimes go in a totally different way. But I think a lot of that is more prescribed and a bit irrational, when I think if you take, like I said, all of the other fabric out of the way, I think that we all desire that. And even people who yearn that they don't, I mean, sometimes their attempts are so rigorous to prove otherwise, you can kind of see in the general root of it all that they actually do. Even sometimes in like tragic instances with the need to do horrible things for the sake of attention or winning against others. I mean, if they didn't want communion with others, why would they feel a need to destroy themselves or others to the point that it would be, televised or marked, or it's at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to the same thing, no matter how deranged it gets, right? And hopefully it doesn't need to get deranged is also the point of it all, right? Or at least to the largest extent. It might always exist to a smaller extent. But yeah, the need and desire and true want inherently to love and be loved. And I think also we want an element of freedom, which ties into, the capitalist point of view, where I don't think that we desire for that freedom to abundantly cost more as our resources stay the same and or are lesser against it. I don't think anyone is like joyous about that, other than people who have many more resources than the others and can still facilitate that need, which just by logic would be kind of selfishness and not really caring for the rest. But I think our idea of freedom is, yes, to express ourselves in a way, and I think we have taken great effort, like in life, in a pretty major way to make sure that individualism is a task that we see fit, and we've also like let that kind of triumph over the other freedom, which is, you know, the freedom to like exist, you know, peacefully without an extraordinarily large transaction against our life to do so. Because really, at the end of the day, wage, salary, benefit of any kind from a capitalist standpoint tends to be the trading or of life, of our own life, or even worse, the trading of other people's life and extracting profit from that, which is like another, certainly can, I think, be done in a good way, but wow, oftentimes maybe not the case. And so I think we all generally want those things, and posing questions collectively in different environments, in different cultures, with different sort of programming in our mind coming from those spaces. I think that we should pose a lot more questions, and from a position of really unselfishness, you know, knowing that we belong to this one group, whether we like it or not, as human beings, that we should pose questions against the apparatuses of our structure, these claims that we make, these thoughts that we have. I would say many times conscious, sometimes unconscious, but unconscious kind of leads to conscious, so it's all the same thing, at least in my eyes. But pose the questions to all of the things that we think, like openly, publicly, collaboratively, again, not for an end result, for a fast fix, absolute fix. I think we would get there in time, but the starting point is to have like a real fix, which is not, you know, simple band-aid solutions of this for that person and that for this, and, you know, make it work, get the deal done, here we go, we've got this much time, keep it moving. Like, this tends to be kind of the way we do a lot of the things that we do in our lives. So rather taking the time to pose the questions and demanding, really demanding of the apparatus, right, that we do have this time to collaboratively question, think, reflect, practice, reflect, experiment, reflect, see how it's working, like just go on that timeline of things can be much more powerful than simply like a quick study, quick answer, jamming the answer down throats. Okay, it's publicly accepted. Okay, it is what it is. You know, later we find that wasn't the best answer. You know, we readdress it. This is like kind of what we're doing, and I don't know. I don't know. You know, I really would love to know what people think in this regard. I'm thinking a lot today about how revolutionary it seems to be in my life, that I've really let a lot of the desire for those constant, you know, results, claims, answers to be the mission, right? But rather to still have it be, you know, the distant desire, like what the heart beats for, by using my energy for the questions, you know. If this is said to be this, is it? You know, and if it is, why that? You know, and if that, could it ever be? You know, well, if it will be, then how do we get there? You know, that's simple. I just came up with that in a couple moments. That could be applied to so many things, so many things. You know, I think that is hard work. I think it's also easy work. I think it really comes from like letting go of the whole like somebody with a hammer just trying to get it done. This is like constantly what we're doing. We're just with a hammer just trying to get it done, and sometimes not even really with the opportunity to decide when to pick up the hammer, what type of hammer it is. We have people, we have things constantly telling us that. And so much so that we actually think we are picking up the hammer, right? And we're driving it in that place. And all these sort of things. Again, the questions you ask yourself: Am I picking up this hammer because I want to? You know, am I picking up the right hammer? Right? Do I need to pick up a hammer? Right? What is there a benefit to someone when I pick up this hammer? And have I noticed that, like, when I pick it up and work harder, that it might hurt, but like does it profit anybody to have me do this? And if that's the case, why do I do this for that? Does that person care about me? You know, does that person hurt me? Does that person hurt others? Do I reap the benefits of do I share in the benefits of that person who told me to pick up the hammer, but somebody down the street, somebody down the road, somebody that as a human group I literally might be related to, it actually hurts, like in a major way? That's a pretty serious question that we should ask ourselves. Again, like, I don't know, if we're attempting to live an honest life, I really hope, that I pray that that's the case, that we haven't lost. I know, as much as the world and everything tries to remind me that that's not the case anymore and blah blah blah, I have the great joy, thanks be to God, to have seen a lot of light, within really dark people. Who is a bright person? Who is a dark person? Great question. Am I bright? Am I dark? I've definitely been both. So what does that mean? So I hope someone can see me as having light. I know I see myself probably more dark than they do. Right? Why is that? A lot of great questions to pose amidst ourselves today, and I think always. And again, I will always, the conversation will always go back. I think that the answer that we get, the absolute answer, is God. And it's amazing how much, if you're willing to, if you want to really pose serious questions, and maybe even come to like uncomfortable truths and pose more questions, but like intellectually honest questions, not emotionally driven questions, just to get the answer that you desire. But you might find that really, really, wow, God himself answers all questions. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to, because he talks to all of us and he is with all of us, and most likely he has given you a ton of great answers, and maybe they have been the hardest answers, for you to hear. And so maybe, I know I have, just like shoulder those and do something different, because you're in charge, right? And you have like a right to like be an individual, right? So it's an interesting thing for us to think about. But for me, myself, that is what draws me to God the most, is really, really how beautiful he is. And I can feel it when I say it. All the people who are like, oh, really? He's so good? Then yada, yada, yada. And tell me a bunch of human stories. A bunch of human stories about, this happened in the name of him, so how can he be? If he's this, then how come that? We love to feel like we're very, very intelligent. We really do. But ask yourself the question, like, how are you here? How are you here? How are you doing these things? How many things have you done wrong? You're here, somebody loves you a lot. Wow. And again, you can in your own life, you can go to the but this, that's true. That's straight up true. All these things you have to say are straight up true. But also, there's a ton that you should be grateful for, especially if, I would imagine, anybody viewing this is breathing today. Just fundamentally there, right? if you're breathing today, right, and you are aware, which I would assume any one of us would be aware, that there may be people related to you directly. So it doesn't have to be some stranger, right, from the other side of the street, even, but someone related to you that isn't here. And yet you stand. You might even have somebody related to you who's, or in any way, not just a family member, a friend, past friend, a stranger who inspired you, anyone who's younger than you, who would be younger than you and is not here, and yet you stand. Yeah. You might have someone who's more capable than you, but you seem to have, at least from your own perspective, right, seems to be more capable than you, and you seem to have more than. What? And you're not grateful for that? How do you explain that? If you explain that simply by your greatness, I feel so sorry for you, because you then are on your own with yourself to take control of your entire life. I don't know about you, but I do some good things and I do some bad things. Straight up. But when and I am attempting sincerely to follow him, I pray you have the honest experience to see what that feels like. Now, the common correlation is that I don't know where it comes from, maybe not understanding, maybe sheer ignorance, is that, you know, you will be some dandy fellow. It will be super easy. You might even like, fly on a like magic carpet down to the grocery store tomorrow. I don't know. People think things, I think it gets a lot harder. I think your lens on yourself and the reflection of yourself gets much deeper, and that's kind of a hard process. But I do think that allowing yourself to let go of yourself in some way, in a major way, really, and coming to the understanding of that, it really provides you a lot of peace. And peace, I think, is needed because ultimately we will go through a lot of things in life that are very difficult. And if you can't, have peace in the hard things, then peace in the good things isn't really peace at all. It's simply joy from going through good things. And you'll most likely be on a roller coaster your entire life. And again, as I mentioned before, you most likely will be in some way. So the greatest thing that I pray for you is that you can find more peace along the roller coaster, because it will make the roller coaster ride an amazing adventure to endure. An amazing adventure to endure. And there will be many tough times and many challenges, and you'll always have someone. You'll always have someone who loves you, you can go to, you can ask powerful questions to in quiet spaces, and you can ask in his right time to provide you an answer. And you just keep your heart open, you keep your eyes open, you keep your ears open, and you can tell me if you found any answers. And when you find these answers, you find that it's really a lot less, because it's based in peace. It's a lot less about the quarreling with others, about putting your flag in the dirt and saying that my claim is more superior to your claim. There's less of that, because you have a peace in knowing the greatest answer, which is far, far, far beyond anything I could provide, which is the true answer he has for you. Yeah. So it's a journey. It's a beautiful journey. I wanted to speak today about this beautiful, beautiful blessing for us all, is the ability to have questions more so than statements. And when used collaboratively, and like I said, from a framework that is intellectually honest and driven towards just an open heart, wanting the things we stipulated earlier that are really the basics that hopefully through a loving heart we really desire for everyone in the world to attain, so much so that we're willing and able to make sacrifices in our own lives so that others can have it. Wow, imagine that. That would be crazy. It's possible. It's totally possible. It's kind of down to the biggest question, like, what will you do today? What questions will you ask? What will you allow him to do to you, with you, as he helps you answer those questions? That's a really, really big thing. And I'm praying. I'm really praying for you all to get there in your life, because for me, it's been, I couldn't even put it into words. It's been the most incredible breakthrough in my life to realize that I've been running like a dog, man, like a dog. And I pray you get tired of running and you can find peace, And I think as you find peace, there's a lot coming. There's a lot coming, because his peace is so good. It costs a lot. It costs a lot. So it'll take an incredible amount of work. And I have a poster right there on my wall. And just one day something came to me and I spent hours just making this poster. And it says, "Discipline is the key." That's a longer story. We can get lost in, I don't know, being militant in a righteous way. It's a longer story, but to be a disciple of his, to be really just a true desiring child of his, I think it just takes discipline. And discipline comes from, I think, your love of him, and even the understanding. I can hear others, even the understanding of like him and her, and why do you call him him? It's just like you get focused. People get focused. They already start with the statements and all of it. It's so hard for us to define what I'm truly speaking of. Very hard, very, very hard to define. We've called it things, and we need to rely on things to some extent, base level, be able to call things so we can share things, So that's what I mean by that. And yeah, I pray, I'll close it out in prayer. I think that's good enough for today. But in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. What a beautiful day it is to be alive again, to hear your voice again and feel your presence again, and to know that you give us this life. I don't know if I'll be awake tomorrow, but if I'm awake today, what a gift. What a crazy gift. So I'm super thankful for that. I pray for all the people in the world. They might have what they need today. They might have their bread, to get through this day. The world it's tough. It's tough. And so I'm praying he's in our life, and we're rooted to him. We're bound to him. We can belong. We can seek him in our day, so we can gain the strength to get through it, because it is tough. I pray for those who don't know you. They think they know you. They used to know you. Now they want nothing to do with you. That you can subtly be in their way today. Remind them who you are, and that you can utilize that as an opportunity to recreate that relationship, which is always present, but they might not know right now is. I know in my life for a long time, I tell my wife all the time, wow, he was there the whole time. Crazy when you realize that. Crazy. And I was like not thinking about him at all, but he's always been there. I bet we can all ask ourselves questions and reflect on our lives and see that. So I'm praying for all those who may not be faithful in God, that they can find faith, because it is a beautiful blessing to have in this life. I pray for those most in need, in sickness and in poverty and in just in some ways that might be hard. I think all of us experience things, trials. So we're all in need in a way, and that we can be enriched by His Word, and we can use our minds and our energy and our life to seek His Word, to find His Word, to study His Word, and to know that He gives us a way of knowing directly with that Word, such that we ask Him from a sincere, open, and honest heart, that He can help us work through that Word and understand that Word in a way that can nourish us, nourish our bodies and our minds and our souls and our hearts with that Word. So that's my prayer today. And as usual, I'm super thankful for those that watch this video. And if you like this content, then you should like this content. You should push that like button. You should also subscribe to this channel, because that's a cool thing to do. And you should use the comment section, like I always say, to do what I think the comment section truly was devised to do, which is to build upon this conversation in a constructive way, because I'm nothing, I'm just sharing a conversation, and I would love to build with more people and broaden this conversation so it can take root and be given life and potentially produce a beautiful flower one day. Let's see what happens, huh? Till the next time, God bless you all, and I look forward to seeing you very, very, very soon. Take care.